Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us for today's Lunch to Learn. First and foremost, I would like to thank our sponsors. Ben and Susie Becker is sponsoring in memory of Susie's father, beloved father, right? And known as Pop-Up. Pop-Up? Yeah, Pop-Up, I got that right?
That's right.
Okay. Pop-Up, Yisrael ben Yosef Meir. And the learning today is in memory of Yisrael ben Yosef Meir. May his memory be for a blessing. And as we know, the only way to truly elevate someone in the world, in the next world, is by doing mitzvot, learning Torah, and sponsoring things that are bringing more mitzvot and more Torah, right? Because once we're done in this world, we ourselves cannot accomplish anything more, but our loved ones, our friends, right, could go ahead and do mitzvot and learn Torah or sponsor things in memory of our loved ones, and their neshama, their soul, which is the essence of who we are, continues to be elevated through those mitzvot and Torah that we continue to do in their memory. So may his memory be for a blessing, and the learning that we do today elevate his soul. Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, no duh, it's Purim, right? Purim is next week, right? Actually, in 1 week from today, right, we're going to have Purim, and it's going to be awesome. Let's hope it doesn't rain. That's one thing. Let's just really hope it doesn't rain on Purim. Right? Has anybody ever had Purim in the snow?
No.
I have.
Oh.
Right, Susie, you had Purim in the snow in New York? Ever?
100%.
100%. There you go. I thought. All right, we had.
Stephanie is having Purim in the snow this year.
Oh, you are. Right, so I grew up in Toronto, and in Toronto we had Purim in the snow many times. So Purim in the snow is not fun, and Purim in rain is also not that fun. But let's leave that alone. That's not the topic of today. But we want to know about the forecast. We'll go to Ben, and he'll send us. You know, I know you're not the forecast person, but you'll let us know who to be in touch with for the forecast.
Yeah,
right?
actually, you should ask first what weather app.
Right, there you go. Weather app. There you go. We got it
Just
advertising right there.
Just first, actually,
It's like this comes off, just like this happens. You know, like this rolls off his tongue. Right. Thanks, Ben, for that plug for Action Jacks, right? Action Jacks. I can't even pronounce it. Action Jacks. Okay, so let's get to some more serious stuff. Nothing against our local radio station here. So the topic of today's conversation is Purim, unmasking our reality. Right, unmasking our reality, and that's what I want to talk about today. So let's just look at the first source. Right? Most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. You trade in your reality for a role. You give up your ability to feel and exchange, put on a mask. Know yourself is perhaps one of the most famous philosophical dicta. Knowing yourself, knowing who you are, that is something that we all want. Some of us strive for it, some of it accomplish it, but it's something that most of us dream about. And what we're going to talk about today is how to be able to connect to oneself. How are we able to remove that mask, so to say, right, and truly connect internally to who someone is through the Purim story? Because what better time than the Purim story, right? What do we do on Purim? We wear masks, right? Purim is a holiday, right, of masks. So let's go a little deeper into this holiday, right, and expand and understand how we, right, could go ahead and unmask ourselves and our reality, right, and really be able to connect to who we truly are and what our true purpose is, right, through this class. So thank you all. That's the idea of today's class. And as always, we love questions, we love comments, right? So please, right, I love it when it becomes a little more interactive. So if you have a question or comment, feel free to lift your hand like this, right? And I'll be happy to answer that. Okay, number one, where do we know the holiday of Purim from? So very interesting. Every holiday, right, is in the Torah. So now Passover, that's pretty easy because it's a biblical holiday, right? So it says in the Torah, right? The Jewish people went out of Egypt, right? And we should have the matzah, right? It's all in the book of Exodus, right? That's pretty simple. The holiday of Sukkot, right? The Torah also tells us the Sukkot takes Yom wants to sit in the Sukkah for 7 days. The holiday of Shavuot, it also tells us straight in the Torah, right? It tells us that we count 49 days, and on the 50th day, right? It should be at Saras Bachem, it should be a holiday for you. Rosh Hashanah, right? It also tells us Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The Torah tells us because these are all biblical holidays. But there are two rabbinic holidays. And what are those two rabbinic holidays? One is Purim, no duh, because that's what we're talking about. The trick question is, what's the other one? Anybody know? Hanukkah. Very good. Excellent. I guess it wasn't such a trick question, right? Hanukkah is the other rabbinic holiday, but today is Purim, so we're not going to talk about Hanukkah. We're going to talk about Purim. Right? So the holiday of Purim is a rabbinic holiday, but everything is hidden in the Torah. We did a lunch and learn on this one, so I don't want to get too sidetracked in. But everything that happens, right? Everything that the rabbis enacted, it's hidden in the Torah. And the Torah alludes to it. We just have to be able to find it. And everything that ever happens is hidden in the Torah. It's a whole nother discussion. There's something called the Torah codes, right? And many other wonderful classes and lectures that were given on this topic. So the Talmud asks us, the Talmud says, right, where is Esther, the book of Esther, the story of Purim? Where is it hidden in the Torah? So what does the Talmud tell us? The Talmud says, because the end of Deuteronomy, right? At the end of the book of Devarim, the end of the book of Deuteronomy, it says like this. It says, Haster, Haster Panai V'Yamahu. I will hide. Haster, Hester means hidden. And he Haster, Haster Panai. I will hide, right? My face on that day. Now the word, I don't have the English, the Hebrew. I only have the English, right? I apologize. I should have put the Hebrew. But if you look at the word Aster and Esther, it's interchangeable. Right? The letters, the Hebrew letters, right? The biblical Hebrew letters and the modern Hebrew letters of Aster and Esther are interchangeable. So the Gemara says, Anochi Aster, Aster Panai, I will hide my face when? In the days of Aster, which if you change the letters around and change into Kudot, right, will be Esther. So in the days of Esther is when God was hidden, as we know, right? If you read through the Megillah, very strangely, there's not the name of God in the Megillah. And go read through the whole book in the Megillah. Hashem's name is not written once. Now the Talmud tells us every time it says the word Ha-Melech with a hey, right? Not Melech, but when it says Ha-Melech, it refers to God. Biblically, that's what it refers to God. That's Talmud tells us. But the name of God is not written in the Megillah because God was hidden during the story of Purim. I've done this many times, as some of you might remember, and some of you maybe not. And for those that do remember, right? Please chime in. How long is the story of the Megillah? From all the way to the beginning of the Megillah, right? When it says Achashverosh made a party in the third year of his rule, right? He made a party, beautiful. And then about 45 minutes later, I guess it depends how quickly the person reads. I actually was one time, right? I was in Israel, right? In my Beit Knesset in Israel, right? It was an early morning minyan. I davened with Netzach Hama, with sunrise, right? And the person that led the Megillah did it in 20 minutes, right? I was like, whew, that was great. There was no kids going, rah, right? So, by Haman, right? It did it in 20 minutes, but usually it takes about 45 minutes, right, to read the Megillah. So from the beginning, when it says, and Achashverosh made a party on the third year of his rule, all the way to the end, where Mordechai and Esther are the heroes now, and it says that Achashverosh put a tax, right, onto the people. How long of a time is that? Not how long it takes to read it, but how long of a time? Okay, Sherry, 10 years, very good, right? Eshel Shanim, 10 years. Right, we read through it, okay, oh wow, very cool. Okay, this happened, that happened. Vashti got killed, Esther became queen, right? Then and then Haman came to power. After these days, Haman came to power. That was years later.
How do you know? Is it written there?
Yeah, because it says, if you look at the Shanim, it says B'shnat Shalosh, and then it says B'shnat Shloshesfer, right? It says at the end, right? Very good question, right? How do I know? Maybe I just made it up, right? Try, it's a good question, right? Fact check, right? Thank you. Right? It says, no, the Sheila Botova, right? It's an excellent question. We have to know how we know things. Right?
Do we know when it happened, like what around what time in the years? Like
yeah, so excellent. So it happened, right? Let's do a quick calculation, right? From Yetziat Mitzrayim, and then I'll do it backwards. Okay, excellent question, right? Stad wants to know when did the story of Purim happen? Right, so from Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? So the Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years, right? Then till the first Beit HaMikdash was built, when the Jewish people came into Eretz Yisrael, it was 420 years, I think it's 430 years. I don't remember exactly, but somewhere around there. Let's just round it up to 420 years. The first Beit HaMikdash was 410 years. Right, so we're at 840 plus 10 and 20, right? So 30, so 70, so 870 years, right? Then the Purim story happened in the end of the Galut, the end of the exile, right? Which the exile was for 70 years, right? So 70 plus 870 is 940, right? So it happened 940 years after Yetziat Mitzrayim, after the Jewish people left Egypt. Now, if you go the other way around, right, the second Beit HaMikdash was built for 420 years, right, and the Common Era, right, started, right. The Beit HaMikdash was destroyed about 70 of the Common Era, right. So if you look at it, right, so 70 of the Common Era, then minus 420. Right, so it's thank you, 300, yeah, something like that, BC, right? So happened around 350 before the Common Era, right? That's approximately when it happened, right? And from the Yetziat Mitzrayim, from the Exodus to Egypt, it happened about 940 years, give or take 10 years here, 10 years here, right? Very good question, right? So that's a Purim story. The Purim story is a Purim of being hidden. Right, that is a Purim story. The question is, what are we supposed to take out of it? Very nice. So the Purim story took 10 years, right? Imagine 10 years in the political world now, right? Imagine 10 years ago, right? So that would be, what are we in 2022? So 2012, right? Right? The world is very different, right? Do we connect things that happened then? Now, yes, we do. If this person would have been president, and if that country would have that, we could start connecting things, but people don't think that way. Right, but the Purim story took 10 years, and we have to know, why did it take so long? What was the purpose of it? What are we supposed to learn from it? Why did it look like a political game? Why did it look like a natural occurrence? Why did Hashem make this miracle to make it seem like it just happened to be that Esther was most beautiful? She won the pageant, right? Right? She was the most beautiful. She was like, whoa, right? Like Miss Israel, Yafeh, right? And so the king liked her, right? It happened to be that Mordecai knew 70 languages, so he overheard the two people talking, right? It happened to be that that night, Achashverosh couldn't sleep, and he asked to look at his book, and he was told that Mordecai never got, rewarded, and happened to be right then that Haman came in to want to kill Mordecai, right? Happened to be, right? Why did Hashem create this miracle that way? Hanukkah story is an open miracle. Right, a couple of Jews with some beards, right, some rabbis and Kahana, right, go ahead and fight the mighty Greek army, right? Oil that doesn't last for one day, lasts for 7 days, an extra 7 days, 8 days, but an extra 7 days. Well, why is it holiday only 8 days? Should have come to our last lunch and look it up on my YouTube channel, right? But that was an open miracle. Pesach was an open miracle. 10 plagues, right? We sing it, right? We act it out. Different people have different customs and how to talk about the 10 plagues. My mother loves it. We're going to Toronto Pesach this year. We're looking forward to it. Haven't been there in 3 years, right? And my mother likes to throw frogs on the table. And she takes like a dye and pours it into the water for the kids to make it look like blood, right? We try to act it out. What do we do for a wild animal? Just let the kids loose. No, I'm just kidding, right? Right? Just kidding, right? Not really kidding. But we act it out, right? Pesach is an open miracle. So why Purim, right? Why did Hashem create the miracle of Purim in this way? That's the question that we have to understand, and we will get back to that question soon. Let's take the next idea. Rabbi Sim Schwab, right? So for those that have come to my my prayer class in Shabbat, right? Over the years, if you come more often or less often on Shabbat, I give a class on prayer during davening, right? Every other week. And I use a lot of Rabbi Sim Schwab's explanation on the prayer. And so Shimon Schwab noted that two people can look at the same thing and see something totally different. I totally realize that. Me and my wife sometimes see things totally different, right? I see this, you see that. Sometimes we see the same thing, sometimes we don't, right? We all understand that. We can see things totally different. But he's talking about a different idea, right? He's talking about understanding things, a different kind of vision. The spies saw giants and funerals, right? The sin of the spies, right? The sin of the spies was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say, right? That's when God said, that's it. You guys sinned 10 times, 40 years in the desert, right? That's when the decree of 40 years in the desert. What was the sin of the spies? What made them talk negative about the land of Israel? So they said, it's a land that eats its people. They saw funerals, they saw people dying. But what did they fail to see? They failed to see the wholeness of the land. They failed to see that God was doing this in order for them to be able to go undetected. Right? They failed to see the greatness of what this really is all about. They saw the negative. They failed to see the positive. They saw what the external, what the outside, right? One can observe and one can see the external part, people dying. They failed, right, to see the deeper, right, and in the internal part of what really was going on. So yes, some of us see different things, right? Some of us notice that, and other people notice that, right? What's the famous joke? So you guys better laugh. Right? What's the famous joke? Right? A husband and wife come out of a kiddush, right, on Shabbos. The guy says, "Oh, the herring and the schnapps was great," right? And once the wife said, "Oh, it's decorated beautifully," right? A whole different way of looking at things, right? But we're talking about a different vision, right? A different kind of idea. We're talking about being able to see things deeper than what seems. We see people dying. We see other things. What's really happening? The spies were not able to do that. Right? It says or Shimon Schwab, that was the problem of the spies. In Ethics of Our Father, it says, right, who are the students of Avraham Avinu? Right, the students of Abraham, Avraham Avinu are Ayin Tov, a good eye. There's many different explanations of what Ayin Tov, a good eye means. But one of the explanations that the commentaries give, what does it mean, Ayin Tov, a good eye? It means to say that you're able to really look deep into something and understand, not just look at the surface of how it seems. That's an Ayin Tov. That was Abraham. Abraham had 10 tests, right? God told him to sacrifice his child, right? He came to the land of Israel after God told him there was a famine, right? He understood that there was something deeper going on. That was Abraham. He didn't just react to what he saw with his naked eye, but he went dug deeper inside, right? This, my friends, is what the holiday of Purim teaches us. Why do we wear masks on Purim? Okay, so the simple thing is, as you know, it's a nascent star, it's a hidden miracle, right? So we wear a mask. What's the deeper reason we wear a mask? What's the reason we wear a mask? So there's many different ideas, but I want to share with you two, one now and one later. Masks also provide a way to visually respond to an answer to a question, who am I? Right? Figuratively speaking, people wear masks all the time. Right? In his critical claiming poem, we will wear masks, right? Paul Durner, whatever his name is, writes, we wear the masks that grins and lies. It hides over cheeks and shades our eyes. And he wrote this poem in 1896. What's masks? A lot of times we wear a mask, right? Because we don't want, we want to pretend something, right? So I'm not going to tell you what our costume this year is because I'll probably not be allowed back into my house. I'm just kidding, right? Maybe. But last year, right? The Fagman families were pilots, I think. Right? I don't remember. I think we were pilots, right? Yeah, we were pilots. Right. So last year the kids were stewardess and I was a pilot, right? And it was great. So I wear my little pilot hat, right? And I had like little wings, right? Oh, I felt all flustered. I felt the pilot. Am I really a pilot? And another year, I really like this one. We were suits, pirates, right? We were pirates. Right, I was just looking through pictures, right? They came up on my Facebook post of memories because like around this time of year, we were pirates, right? And that was really cool, right? I wore like a little dreadlock and I wore like a little hat and it was like wore the costume. It was really cool, right? But that's just putting on a front. It's okay, so it's Purim. We know it's not really like that. But how many times do we put on a mask? to pretend we're something, right? To act. So sometimes you need to. I'd say it's important to also dress the part. You don't want, if you come onto the plane and you see the pilot coming up with you, like, and he's like wearing a half-torn shirt, nothing against that. Yeah, okay, there's something against a half-torn shirt, right? Right, but wearing a half-torn shirt, and like jeans, and like nowadays, I've seen it. The less of the jean you have, the more expensive it is. I don't get it, right? But okay, right? But like wearing jeans like are torn and like I don't know has like crazy here. He probably could be the best pilot, right? But you're like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't get on this plane, right? And if you don't say that, then you're exotic, right? But most of us, right, react that way because the way you see a police officer, or you see a football player, or whatever it is, whatever their profession is, or a rabbi, right? My father did this, and it was very cool. Right, so my father's a rabbi also, right? Not all rabbis' fathers are rabbis, but my father happens to be a rabbi, right? And he was talking about modesty, and this is going back about 30 years ago. He's talking about modesty to an all-girls school in Toronto, right? And it was like, okay, I could get up there and start talking to them, this and that, and it's like, hey, Rabbi, what do you know about our struggles? And he's right, they're right? What do you know about our struggle? So what did he do? Right? Father's a genius. Okay, that's what I say. But I think he is. Right? What did he do? So, as I mentioned before, I grew up in Toronto. Right. So he borrowed. Right. Yeah, no. But he borrowed either me or my brothers. I don't remember a baseball cap. So we're Blue Jay fans. That's a Toronto team, Blue Jay. Right. Borrowed our Toronto Blue Jay cap and on a T-shirt. Right. And there's a big stage, big auditorium, all the kids. There's a school of like 300 girls or something like that, right? They are there, and my father's like behind, and the head of the school is saying, "We're so honored to have Feigenbaum," right? And it was a school that spoke both in Hebrew and in English, so he's speaking both in Hebrew and English, right? Opana in Toronto, that's what it's called, Opana Orot, right? And my father in the back, while he's calling him up, he takes off his jacket and he puts on a baseball cap and he puts on the T-shirt, right? The Blue Jay T-shirt. Right, and all of a sudden said, "Okay, we're very honored, right? I love Feigenbaum." And my father comes on in baseball cap and his T-shirt, and he comes, "Hey, yeah, okay, yeah." Right, he gets to the podium and like the principal's face like falls apart, right? Like, and all the girls are like giggling, right? And my father starts talking. The Gemara says, right? Starts talking, and like he continues like for a minute, right? For like a minute, and all time he said, "So what's wrong, guys?" Right? And he said, "Well, but you're a Rav. Rav shouldn't be wearing the cap." And he said, so the way you dress does make a difference, right? And he made them realize that the way we dress does make a difference, right? You don't, right? The Rav, coming up, I go to baseball games, I wear, I dress down, but if you're coming to speak, you have to come respectful. You have to come as your dress code, right? And then he went out and talked. So the way we dress sometimes is important. Right, but it has to be who you are also, right? And we put on masks on our lives, right? We go ahead and we put on a lot of masks, right? And what do we have to do? We have to look deep inside and say, are we wearing a mask? Are we wearing who we are? How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we truly find who we are? And how do we know if we're just putting on a mask because it's too hard to take off the mask? Because you just want to be more comfortable with the mask. I personally like wearing polo shirts, right? And dressing down. I do, right? I'm much more comfortable. I don't like putting on my tie, right? Especially my jacket, right? If you notice, I like stop, but I don't like wearing my sleeves down, right? So that far I don't, right? My wife wanted to buy me cufflinks for our wedding. I said, it's gonna be a waste of money, right? Because I don't wear my sleeves down. So I guess that I kept, right? And it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, I know that sometimes I have to wear what I am, but also you have to know what we are. Sometimes it's just more comfortable to be something that we're not really supposed to be. Comfort of life. Go ahead.
I've seen people go to the Bima with wearing jeans, and some of these things. Imagine that they go to the Bima wearing jeans.
Right. So again, I don't want to talk about any specific case, right? If that's how you feel, that's great. My personal feeling, I think also is walk up to the Bima with respect, right? What if I think it's different if it's during the week, because we also go to the Bima during the week if it's Shabbat, right? But I don't want to talk about any specific case, right? but we're talking about more in general right now, right? It's not only clothes, it's also the mask that we put on, right, of our relationship with God, on how we do certain things. So let's dig a little deeper. Let's take a step further. So the next source that we want to talk about is, right, Esther. So we spoke about the word Esther. We said, how do we know the Purim stories from Esther, right? That's what we said. But the Talmud tells us, the Gemara tells us that Esther had another name, Hadassah, right? Hadassah is a beautiful name, right? The whole Hadassah organization, but Hadassah is a beautiful name. And so Esther's name also came from Hadassah. Now, what is Hadassah? It comes from Hadass. Right? What's a Hadass? Right, so the commentaries explain this is more of a mystical, from the mystical writings of from the Arizal and others, right? Explain what's the connection. Connection like this: we know that we have, right, 4 species that we shake on Sukkot. 4 species we shake on Sukkot. One of them is the lulav, right? Represents the spine, right? They represent different parts of the body. The esrog represents the heart, right? The aravot, right, represents the lips, and the hadass represents the eyes, right? That's what the Hadass represents. That's what it's brought down. So it says in Farshim, right? Esther's eyes could see inner reality as clearly as our eyes see external reality. And I highlighted that point, right? Esther's eyes were able to see the inner reality of something, just like our eyes could see the external reality. And therefore, Esther was able to really tap in to what the Purim story is all about. What is that? Purim story is about realizing that just because something seems external in a certain way, doesn't mean to say that that's true reality. True reality, right? True reality is the realization that there's something beyond our physical world. I was having a conversation with someone, I think it was actually one of my kids, right? But we're like talking about science, right? And we're talking about, you know, whatever you hold, the question is, I'm not a big, I don't know a lot about science. I never studied it past high school, right? And I read books and things like that. The one thing I can never understand, right, is how could something come from nothing? How could so why is oil combustion goes to molecule? Where did those molecules come from? And where did the first molecule? Where did something come from? How could something come from nothing? A simple question. I'm not a big professor. It's a simple question. And realizing that the world is created by someone, something, God, right? I have no idea. There's no terminology. It's God, right? It's God, right? God created this universe. He created this world, and the universe and the world is a mirage. Anybody watch the Truman Show? Yeah, Truman Show. Yeah, Truman Show, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. So I love the Truman Show because I think it really brings this concept out. Right, the Truman Show. What does he think? He thinks he's in a reality, but really, there's people pressing buttons to turn the light on. Right, there's people that are pressing buttons for the waves to go. Right, there's people. Right, there's people outside that are pressing the buttons to create everything. So everything's really just external thing. Right, there's nothing really there. Right. So to our lives, right, to a certain degree, right, God created it. Right, God created everything, and He allows everything to happen. Oh, so why did God create it this way? Because if we could see God every second, we would have no free will. Have no free will. If God appeared to us, woo, right, we'd have no free will. Right? So God created a behester in a hidden way. Right? That's what it means. God is hidden. Right? In our exile, that we don't have a temple with fire coming down. Right? God is hidden. And the Purim story is the epitome of our exile. The Purim story is a 10-year process representing a part of our lives. We are living constantly with things that seem like, oh, it's a coincidence, it happened to be, blah, 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 blah. Right? How did I meet my wife? Okay, my friend, I went to yeshiva here, she went on a camp trip, right? And there was someone there and they met up again, and she happened to be a sister of the brother, right, of a friend of mine who, when I got back, right, she happened to sit on his table for Shabbos meal, and they were talking about friends. Oh, I have a great idea. how about these two together? Right? We went out, and 16 years later, right? We have 5 beautiful kids. Right? Anniversary is March 22nd, 16 years. Okay, happened to me. It was a process. That is the Purim story. That is Esther. Esther is one of our greatest leaders. Right? I gave a whole class once, Esther as our leader, right? Learning leadership from Esther. But one of the things we spoke about, right? Esther, right, had the ability to remove away, right, all that seemed and realize what really was there. She realized that God had a mission for her. She realized that she's going to hold the course. And that's the next thing, the ability of self-control. She's going to hold the course. She's not going to reveal who she is, right? Because she listened to her rabbis. Mordecai told her, right? Even maybe she didn't understand or she didn't understand, but she's going to hold the course. She realized there's something greater going on here. And then eventually she saw it and she acted upon it. There was a process. But she had those eyes, those visions, that Ayin Tov of Avraham Avinu, right? The ability to be able to remove things, remove the mask and see who we truly are, what is truly going on in our lives, what's really going on in the world. What are the things that are blocking? What are the masks? Masks is nature. The masks is our desires. The masks is the philosophy of the world. Right? The masks, there's many masks that are out there. We have to work on that. To truly be able to control oneself, that's a true leader. Being able to say, I'm going to hold the course, right? I'm going to wait 10 years, right? Things don't have to happen right now, but realizing that there is a master plan. And I want to take, in this same route, let's take a little different direction and connect all these stuff together. Now, what is one of the things that sort of hold us back from being able to truly dig deep into ourselves, right? It seems like a simple thing, right? Okay, let's remove the mask. Okay, cool, this makes sense, right? Something can come from nothing. Okay, let's remove the mask. Okay, we're good. I don't want to be Truman Show guy, right? I want to have a real life. So what are some of the things that are holding us back? We learned this from the Purim story also. Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, he's the rabbi of the synagogue in Boca. It had like 900 families. I think they just went up to 1,100 families. One of the Orthodox synagogues in Boca, right? He's a tremendous writer and a great speaker. Right, so I saw this and I took it from one of his pieces. It says like this, it says, Haman, right? When he spoke, what was his thing that he told King Achashverosh? Right? What did he tell Achashverosh? Right? That said, Achashverosh said, okay, get rid of them. It's fine. Take them. Do whatever you want with them. Right? Like he didn't even say get rid of them. He said like he didn't care. Like, okay, here's the keys. Do whatever you want. That's like some parent telling their kid, here's the keys. Go wreck the car. Right? Like, it's like, here, go do it. Right? What did he tell them? So he said, Yeshnam am echad. There is one nation. Right? There is a certain nation. Yeshnam am echad. There's a certain nation. And the Talmud tells us it's a play on words. What is it? There's this nation. Okay, so therefore what? Right? There's a lot of nations, right? There's the Indians, and there's this, and there's that, right? There's plenty of nations, right? The Greeks, right? He controlled the whole known world, 127 Midyanot, right? 127 nations. Yeah, there is a nation. There's plenty of nations. So the Talmud says like this. The Talmud says the play on words again. Yeshnam am echad. What he was saying is Yoshnim am echad. There's a nation that is sleeping. They are sleeping. They have been negligent of the mitzvahs. They are divided. They are fighting amongst each other. Right? They have no achdut. They have no unity. Right? With one another, diversity. They are sleeping as to what is important and what threatens them. So Achashverosh said, they all knew about the Jewish people. Right? Even by the story of Yonah. Right, the story of Yonah that we read on Yom Kippur, right? What happened in the story of Yonah, right? He was running away because he didn't want to give the message to the people of Nineveh. Okay, it needs explanation. Like, how could you run away from God? How can you think running away from God? He was a prophet, for God's sakes, right? Like, how can you think you can run away from God? Not our discussion today, right? Yom Kippur, maybe, right? You guys have to stick around, right? But when he was on the boat and the waves were crushing against the boat and all that stuff, right? They finally asked him, who are you? He says, Elokim ani yoreh. I fear the God of the Jewish people. And what does it say? Charada Gadola, there was a fear amongst all the people because they knew who God was. Right? And I spoke about this on Kippur once, right? Back then, they had a greater knowledge of God than the non-Jews, right? Than even some of us do. That's a different topic. But Harad, they had a fear. So Achashverosh knew. Haman knew about the Jewish king. That's why he made the party in the third year, because he made a calculation that they're not, it was 70 years. The Talmud goes through the whole mathematical equation that he messed up of when the exile started. A whole passage of Talmud, a whole page, and I'm not going through it now because it's complicated, right? And it's long, right? But see, they knew about it. So when he heard, what did Haman just have to say? That the Jewish people are sleeping, they're negligent. What do you mean they're sleeping? They're walking around, they're doing their business and all that stuff. They are sleeping to their true reality. They're not doing mitzvot anymore. Or even if they're doing mitzvot, they're just doing out of rote. They're like, okay, make a bracha, right? They're just doing out of rote. Right? Whatever level they're doing, if it's Shabbat, if it's Yom Kippur, wherever they're holding in life. And we all just have to take that next rung. It's not for me to judge anybody. We're all growing. I promise you, I'm growing myself. I have a lot of things to work on, right? But whatever we're doing, we're sort of in a daze, or they're just being totally clueless, right? They're fighting amongst each other, right? They can't realize that we have a common denominator, that we're brothers and sisters. They're sleeping. They're sleeping to the reality. To the true reality. They're just living in their mask. They're living in this haze. They're living in a dream that they think, oh, we're safe here. We're in Persia. We're good, right? We got it good. We're okay. Look, we were invited to the king's party, right? They were invited to the king's party, right? We're good. We're safe. We're fine. We don't have to worry. We don't have to do. We're sleeping. Haman. That's all he had to tell Achashverosh. When Achashverosh heard that, said, oh, okay, great. We got them, right? If they're fighting amongst each other, right? If they're sleeping, right? If they're not into the true reality of who they are, right? If they think that they're comfortable here, they think, oh, we're good. And unfortunately, this has happened in history, many places. We got them. They're ours for the taking. Go, do what you want with them. So what was Mordechai's response? Look at the next paragraph. Mordechai understood. So what did he say? In the book of Esther, it says, Lech knos kol Yehudim. Right? What did Esther tell Mordechai to do? It said, Lech, go, knos kol Yehudim, gather all the Jewish people. Go and gather all the Jewish people and wake them up. The alarm clock, that annoying alarm clock, beep, beep, beep. I don't think anybody has that anymore. Maybe they do. Now it's like, oh, you do still have that one?
My son has it, but he still doesn't do it.
Right, so gotta just pour some water over him. Right, so I used to put my alarm clock the other side of the room, and mother would come and turn it off. Right, right. But right, wake up. Wake them up. Right, he understood that the response to that they're scattered, the response of that they're sleeping, the response of that we're not doing what we're supposed to be, we're not realizing the reality was to bring them back together, right? For us to unite together, to wake up and realize our true reality, that with all our differences, with all our struggles, we are brothers and sisters, and we're the only ones that can help each other. Who's helping the Jews in Ukraine? The Israelis, right? Organizations in Borough Park, from Hasidim to secular people, right? To the Reform, to the Conservative, to the Orthodox, doesn't make a difference. We gather, we unite together, because that's who we are. We could find all the differences we want. That's just looking at the external part, right? That's an ayin ra. As the other part of the Pirkei Avos, that's what our father says. If you know what you are, if you're a student of Bilam Harasha, and Bilam who cursed the Jewish people, ayin ra, bad eye. You always find the negative. You're always looking for them. Let me just finish this and I'll take your question. Right? You're always finding the negative in things. We have to be an ayin tov. We have to find the positive. Realize who we are. Dig beyond the things that could separate us. Right? Look at the true reality. No, yes, I'm a patriot American. Right? My grandfather served in World War II. Right? My grandfather was born in America, and they played football on July 4th and had a flag and had pie. right? More than that, of course, right? And I vote, and I'm very proud of it. But at the same time, I'm a Jew first. Wherever you live, right? Whatever denominations we like calling another Bible, say, I hate those denominations. I hate the names. We're Jewish people. Right? Let's not divide ourselves. Let's put the differences, let's remove those things and find truly who we are. Achenu Kabeis Yisrael. We are brothers and sisters. We have differences. Let's not focus on that. And through that, we're able to then also focus on what our true purpose in this world is. Right? Is our relationship with Hashem. Realizing that the world is a mirage, realizing that it's just another Truman Show. We have to connect. Right? We have to find the true reality. And each one of us on our step, on our level, one step at a time, if it's making another bracha, right? If it's lighting Shabbos candles one more week, right? If it's taking on a little more kosher, if it's being nicer to people, if it's watching what we speak, right? Whatever it is, taking on one small little step to removing that reality, because that's what we're living in. 10 years is a century. It's a time period. It's referring to our lives. Go ahead.
Look at the Jewish people that go to the synagogue in downtown. They're in a synagogue on a bomb shelter below.
Yeah. Right. So this is what it means. Right? This is what we're supposed to learn. Removing those masks. So why do we wear masks? Before that, we'll get to that in 1 minute. Right. So I want to share one thing from Yitzchak Kutner. Right? Yitzchak Kutner was American born. Right. He went to Europe to study. Right, before the war, and he was able to come back, and he had a yeshiva in New York, right? And his writings are extremely deep. Right, I have a hard time understanding all of it. Right, it's very, very deep, philosophical about the Judaism and the Torah. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, right? But I'm just going to sort of just say it outside. You have two people, right? They have to go ahead and recognize people at night for whatever reason, right? And there's no light outside. So one person has a flashlight and one person does not. Right? So the person that has a flashlight, it's very easy. You can just look at their face. Oh, okay, you're good. Right? And the other person, right, doesn't have a flashlight, so he has to recognize people by their voice. So he trains himself to recognize voices, which is pretty cool to be able to recognize voices. And he trains himself to recognize voices. So during the night, who has it easier? Of course, the person with the flashlight. Right? He looks easy, he's good. But when the day comes and you don't need a flashlight anymore, right? And you don't need to do this anymore, who walked away gaining something? Person that had it harder, but taught himself something. Right? New skills of recognizing a voice, right? Which is the first, right? The first one has none, right? And I'm going to skip to where it's highlighted. He will have gained nothing during the night, which could help him during the day. The second one, however, will always be able to use the new skills of recognizing voices, which he developed in the dark, even during the day. Says of Yitzchak Kutner, and this is what the Purim story is all about. Right? The Purim story is the darkness. Are we going to learn from the Purim story? Are we going to listen to the Purim story? Are we going to open up our eyes and truly see what the Purim story is teaching us? What is it truly teaching us? What are some of the lessons we learned? We realize that what seems is not always a reality, right? We realize that you have to move things away to see what truly is happening. 10 years, right? Look like our lives. Think about 10 years in your life, right? How did I end up in Jacksonville? I wasn't even here 10 years ago. We're here a long time, 8.5 years. Right? But 10 years ago, we were in Kansas, Olin Park, Kansas, right? Midwest, right? But go Royals. They didn't do well when I was there. Right? As soon as I left, they started doing well. Right? So someone told me to leave Jacksonville. Maybe the Jags will do well. I said, nah, that's not happening. Right? Not the Jags. Right? But 10 years is a long time. We have to take a skill out of it. Right? We have to take a skill out of it. One more thing, and then we'll get back to another explanation of why we wear masks, and we'll wrap it all up. The Megillah, very interesting halacha, a law in the Megillah is different than Sefer Torah. So when you come up for Aliyah and Sefer Torah, right, you just have a little bit open in the middle and the two sides on the side, right, and you just move it a little bit into what you need to read. The Megillah, what do you have to do in the Megillah? You actually have to open it all up, right? You have to open it all up. You have to unroll the whole thing, and then folded like this, right? Right? But it has to be, the whole thing has to be open. Why? Right? You can say, I don't know, the rabbis just want to make something different. It's Purim, right? Right? Well, maybe, but no, right? As we said a million times, everything in Judaism has a reason. There's a reason why we do everything, right? Everything has a reason. There's no just because or whatever, right? There's a reason for everything. And I've had conversations with many people. Some of the things, God maybe did not reveal the reason. That's a chod. I don't want to get into that, right? But everything has a reason. So why is the halakha this way? So it says Reb Chaim Friedlander, right? That's the second last one there. It says the idea is the one is to be able to see in one glance how all the events of Purim are connected, how even right, a negative event led to God's salvation. Well, we in our lives, right, are focused on this part of our lives, right? Okay, maybe a year here, a year there, right? But we don't look at the grand scheme of things. Right? We don't look at the whole thing open. The Megillah stories it started, we said it's 10 years, right? The Megillah is telling us that Jewish people, they had light. What is light? They had the realization, right, that the whole past 10 years, since the story of the Achashverosh starting the party, which they thought was, oh, look, we're here, but really what brought the downfall, because they got too comfortable, and that's when Haman realized that they got too comfortable. Look, they're enjoying themselves at the party, they don't care, that they're fine, they feel comfortable here, right? And from there they started slipping, right, in their Judaism, right? And then Esther becoming queen, right? And Haman wanting to kill the Jewish people, and the whole 9 yards, everything was all of a sudden open. And they saw the connection from one to another and how God orchestrated everything. And they were able to see the miracle in our day-to-day lives because they had it all open. So we go ahead and we open up the Megillah to remind us that the way that we're able to see the miracle in our daily lives, right, be able to recognize God in our daily lives, is we have to start expanding our vision from not just one day to the other, 1 year to the other, more on a grand scheme. As it's famously said, right? I forgot the advisor of one of the King Louis. There's a lot of King Louis, right? One of the King Louis, I think it was from 1500, 1600, and he asked his advisor, prove to me that there's spirituality in the world, that there's a God in the world, with one word. What do you say? One word? I could give you a whole like drasha, and I could give like a whole speech about it, right? But one word. The advisor was very smart. He says, the Jews. We are a living. Thank you, Sharon. Right? That's it. My whole class is ruined. Right? Right? Jew. Okay, Jew. Right? Jew. Right? Right? But one word, right? Jews. Why? Because he realized that the Jewish people, we have to reflect that he understood that. We are a living proof that we are still around. Right? That we're still here, still practicing the holiday of Purim. Right, with our hamantashits and dressing up, and more importantly, giving Mashlach Manos, right, having a Purim Suda, right, reading the Megillah, giving Matanat Le'Evyanim, and all the mitzvot, and every other holiday, lighting Friday night candles, and we're still around and doing what we're supposed to be doing. Each one of us are on our own level, but growing. That is the greatest proof of the real reality that the world is run by a spiritual force, and it's all just a mirage because the Vikings are gone. I'm watching a documentary on the Vikings now. That's why I said it. Right? The Vikings are gone. It's fascinating. The Vikings are fascinating. Right? The Vikings are gone. Right? The royal English monarchs are gone. Right? The great Roman Empire is gone. Right? They're gone. Even America is not the same as it was 50 years ago. Let's be honest. Right? But the Jewish people are still here. That is the greatest reality. But we are just always looking at our stage of the game right now, how we are now, how we're compared to society, things like that. We're always trying to compare ourselves to other people. We open up the Megillah. We say, no. We got to look from the beginning to end. We are the source of the concept and reality that is spirituality in the world. The greatest source is the greatest realization. Right? And that's why we go ahead and open up the Megillah to remind us of this major idea of Purim. Open up our eyes. Let's reflect. Right? Remove that mask. I want to end with one more beautiful idea of a mask. Kiva Tats. right? We brought him in 2 years, right? Brought him in 3 years ago to keep a test, and he's phenomenal. He says, Purim is a time of mask. God had gone into hiding in Jewish history, and he's still in hiding, right? Where God is hiding from us. He has donned a mask, but he is not distant. What's the beauty of a mask? If one is distant, he doesn't need a mask to avoid being identified. Right? If I'm in the room over there, right? These windows are closed. We don't know who's in there, right? We might hear them. That's not so distant. We don't know who's in there, right? Do I know who's down the block? No clue. They don't need to be wearing a mask for me not to know who they are. But if I'm right here and I don't want anybody to know who I am, I need to put on a mask. So the idea of God wearing a mask is actually the greatest relief for us, right? Because that means to say that God is close. No, a mask is necessary when it's very close and yet wishes to remain hidden. To remain hidden, to remain close, right? You need to be wearing a mask. The world is his mask. Nature hides his presence. At the same time, right? God is in this world. This same nature needs only to be peeled back to reveal the true source, right? And that's one of the lessons that we can learn from Purim also. God was there the whole time. And that's what it means when I started off saying that the Kabbalists tell us, and every time it says Hamel, the king, it refers to God. And therefore some Megillot, they try to start every page of the Megillah, a page like a daf, whatever it is, with the word Hamelech. Those are more expensive. You have to make sure you do it in a certain way, extend certain letters, right? To remind us that even though God is hidden in the Megillah, even though it took a 10-year process, God was very close the whole time. God was making sure that we were going to be saved. He was never going to let the Jewish people to be completely doomed. He wants us to wake up. He wants us to reflect. He wants us to peel it back. Just like any parent wants their child to grow, right? A parent that gives their child, puts them as a CEO right away of the company is not doing anything good for the child. They have to grow. They have to learn the work. They have to become part of it. They have to go through the hard work, right? Just like the parent did. Otherwise, the kid's not going to be successful and the company's going to go bust. And God wants us to work. God wants us to find him. But God is always close. He's always watching. Right? And we see this time and time again. And just our existence of being here now proves it. God is right around us, because otherwise we would be long gone. We'd be long gone. But God is always around. Now, why sometimes things happen? That's a good question. Another conversation, another topic. Right? Why the bad things happen to good people? And we had speakers come on this books written about them, and I'm happy to have that conversation with people. And sometimes, just like my daughter's going to kill me, right? But just like my daughter doesn't understand, I have a 12-year-old daughter, I have a 14 also, my 12-year-old daughter does not understand, right, why I don't let her have a cell phone. Right? I know, it sounds like barbaric, right? But I don't let her have a cell phone, right? She's still at home, we have a home phone, no need for her to have a cell phone. She thinks I am mean, I see things, she knows I'm not mean, but she thinks that I don't understand. I think you don't understand our times, right? Right? You're like in the times when the phone was on the wall. I said, yeah, that's true, right? The phone was on the wall, right? But you don't understand our times. Yeah, there's certain things that we might not understand. She knows I love her, right? And she's told me that many times. But I'm doing it because that's best. Sometimes we don't understand, but God is still there because we are still around. So all we have to do is unmask ourselves, find our true self, right? Find our true reality, find the true reality of the world, unroll the whole Megillah and realize that we have a power, right? We are a beautiful thing. We have to be a light unto the nations through the Torah, through the mitzvot, through the relationship with Hashem. And let's wake up, like Mordechai said, and be that light unto the nations, and let's get along with each other and remove all that pettiness. We have differences. No reason to bring speakers that talk about the division, right? We know about it, right? We have different differences. We have to try to work together. We have to try and lift common ground. I always tell people, I'm always happy to have a conversation about what I believe. I want to hear what you believe. Let's stay civil and brothers and sisters, and we'll be happy to talk about it. Once we start getting petty and this and that, down we go. So thank you again, the Beckers, for sponsoring this Lunch to Learn. Right? May the Neshama have an aliyah, right? May the Torah that we learned today, right? And may we start removing that mask, rolling out the whole Megillah and truly find, right, what our purpose in this world and realize that God loves us and he's right next to us because he's wearing a mask. Because if he wasn't wearing, if he didn't want to be around us, he wouldn't need to be wearing a mask. He's far away. Thank you all very much. I'm just going to stop the recording, right, and then can I ask you a question?